So it's like if these genres are just a house and music is the home, these genres can exist together in separate rooms and still be a part of the same family. But how do you make a living room for that family that doesn't feel like super obscure to everybody that lives in the house? And I think that's what I try to create, is that living room where it's like, no, they all have space to breathe in respect of their individualism, but at the same time, they still exist under one roof and they still share, meals together.
Welcome back to Point of Origin, a stories playlist dedicated to challenging the homogenous narrative of alternative and indie rock music by amplifying voices of color in the past, present, and future of the genre. Once again, I'm your host, Samir Gadia, and our next feature is the guy you just heard, Gene Dawson.
Hello.
Hey, Gene. How you doing, man?
How you doing? Damn, this is way more high definition. Yeah, it's all bassy. It feels like I'm on AM radio. Hello, tonight we're going to be playing on Quiet Storm.
That's what I'm aiming for. So where are you at right now? You having breakfast?
Yeah, I'm at this place called Swami's in San Diego, California.
Okay. Yeah.
They have these gluten-free pancakes. They're like crazy.
Since he was a child, Dawson has called San Diego his home away from home. Even though he was born in the States, Dawson spent his youth in Tijuana. As befitting of a man from two distinct countries and cultures, Gene's music also falls on the fault lines between genre, and he's given up trying to classify what he is. One thing's for sure, music has always been his top priority. For Dawson, memory and sound are linked in dance. One wilts if the other dies, blooms if the other lives on. This is most evident on his new album Pixel Bath, a towering artistic achievement that manages to meld sound and story, start to finish, in a uniquely fresh way. It all started crossing the border.
Yeah, I grew up in the middle, in betwixt two countries, essentially. I lived in San Diego, California, and Tijuana, Mexico. So I was able to live between two countries and experience dualities where I went to a public school that, kids were getting dropped off by their parents in nice cars, and they had lunch. I never had no packed lunch in my life. I've been taking the bus and the trolley since I was 7 years old by myself with the skateboard and the CD player.
Today's episode is about borders. Borders are both physical and abstract, but you can't separate one without the other. The invisible lines that snake around us dictate what type of education we've had, the friends we've kept, the clothes we wear, and the music we either do or most definitely do not listen to. With all this in mind, I can't help but think of Mending Wall, a poem by Robert Frost. Here's an excerpt I'm going to read to you like the nerd I am. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends the frozen groundswell under it and spills the upper boulders in the sun, and makes gaps even two can pass abreast. I let my neighbor know beyond the hill, and on a day we meet to walk the line and set the wall between us once again. We keep the wall between us as we go. He's all pine, and I am apple orchard. My apple trees will never get across and eat the cones under his pines, I tell him. He only says, good fences make good neighbors. Spring is the mischief in me, and I wonder if I could put a notion in his head. Why do they make good neighbors? Before I built a wall, I'd ask to know what I was walling in or walling out, and to whom I was like to give offense. He moves in darkness, as it seems to me, not of woods only and the shade of trees. He will not go behind his father's saying, and he likes having thought of it so well. He says again, good fences make good neighbors. The walls that keep others from coming in are the same that prevent us from getting out. Thankfully, Gene Dawson has managed to escape through the Mending Wall. Without further ado, Point of Origin starts now. Here's Gene Dawson's track, Triple Double, featuring A$AP Rocky. Enjoy.
What were you listening to on the bus ride? And just like getting across from one country to another?
Honestly, I feel really bad about saying it. So to this day, I still want to do something to rectify it. But I would steal CDs from the library. So they had CDs that you could rent, but like I wanted more than one at a time. And I would just keep them and just go to a new library. I know I was listening to Tony, oddly enough. I have not revisited that music, but I just know that it was doing something for me. I was able to swipe a copy of Graduation, Sierra Leone, Diamonds Are Forever. I remember listening to that on the bus and just being like mystified by it. I don't even remember how I got my hands on graduation, because I remember what I did get from the library was like super hyper symphonic music. So I was listening to fucking Bach and Beethoven and shit like that. Even though I didn't understand it, I just thought it sounded funny. So I would just listen to it while I walked, and it made my day kind of feel like an adventure. My dad was like also a rapper at a certain point, hyper talented dude, but just had kids young. So he had to, grow up really fast. My dad listening to like West Coast gangster rap my entire life. Rock, like very specific rock, is very well celebrated in Mexico. So like anything that's like from Manchester,
Interesting,
like Britpop shit. But my mom listened to the Scorpions a whole fucking lot. I fucking hated it as a kid because I didn't understand it, and I was just like, no, I don't. This is loud. I don't like it. I don't. But then I grew to love it, So I got introduced to that. And then I didn't really get introduced to rock music until my best friend to this day, Evan Wedlake. His brother was in a band. And I remember I would take him hip hop stuff, and he would bring me, like, I'd go over to his house and he'd play me like, I heard In Utero with him. I heard Bleach with him. I remember the first time listening to System of a Down, and I'm just like, what the fuck? I'm like, this sounds like some opera shit. And he's like, exactly.
When you came back home, what were you listening to? Like, what was your family listening to?
Corridos. So yesterday, for my grandmother's 80th birthday, we brought her a band, and they played her favorite songs. And one of her favorite songs that I grew up listening to is called Mi Gusto Es, which it translates to what I like is. And basically the song says, like, this is the things that I like and nobody's going to take them away from me. And she was crying listening to it. And I remember being a kid and her being in the kitchen and just like blasting that. There was a lot. So from my Hispanic side, it was corridos. From my African-American side, it was West Coast gangster rap. And then where I was able to, bring something, I guess, to the table was with my friends on the outside that showed me, like, quote unquote American music.
Last week, the Grammys announced the 2021 nominees. And although the music we listen to is getting more collaborative and diverse thanks to the World Wide Web, the genres we use to classify it are as segregated as ever.
When we're talking about Grammys, it's like you only have one best hip-hop album when it's like, well, if you listen to that last Katy Perry single, that is a hip-hop record. The same thing with Lil Nas X making a country record, and they're like, that's not country. And it's like, well, it is country. That's a country record.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, because it has this hip-hop elements. But okay, well, I can go to like 10 country people that have those same hip-hop elements. The only difference is that they're not a black person. Like, I've said it a million times and I'll say it again. Playboi Carti is a shoegaze artist. Nobody, like, you can either think about it or you cannot. He's a shoegaze artist. You don't know what he's saying. You don't know how well he's saying it, but it sounds fucking so nice, and you feel it so well. I'm just saying that music classification in itself is like a flawed system.
Sanctioning off white and black artists into categories isn't the only issue. It goes way before that, to the creation of the music itself. To think that the music someone can make isn't influenced by socioeconomic borders is naive. Gene Dawson's story is a perfect example of that.
When did you know you wanted to be a musician?
It didn't get serious for me until 7th grade, where I was like, okay, I want to be good at making music. And I didn't have the tools to like be good. And I also couldn't afford lessons for the things that I wanted to do. So I would just draw a scale on computer paper and just practice while I was on the bus. I had it tucked behind my notebook. You remember the little notebook with the plastic, and you could put a piece of paper behind the plastic. Mm-hmm. So I had keys on that, and I would just practice doing scales on that, even though I couldn't hear it. I wasn't able to take guitar lessons, ergo I have a lot harder time creating the music that I want to create because I literally couldn't afford to hold even the instrument that I was interested in, let alone practice with it enough to have enough musical wherewithal to be in that genre classification. Mm-hmm. So rap music for a lot of people is like the most open source. Mm-hmm. Not anybody can do it, but like you just need a pen and a pad and
Totally.
When I came into music, it was rap because I had the most accessibility to make rap music and I understood it more than anything else. But now the older I get, the more musically inclined I get, the more instruments I'm able to touch, the more I am a student of specific genre sounds. There is inherent roadblocks for a black kid to do indie alternative.
Thanks to his upbringing and spirit, Dawson has been able to find the gaps.
Thankfully, there's ways around everything if you try hard enough. I just have to work 10 times harder, like I've always had to do. Being a Black and Mexican man, I have to work harder because I know that there's more brick walls in my way. And I've just never been afraid to go head up with one. My inability to do the things that I wanted to do when I started ultimately influenced the things that I'm doing now. How in the fuck am I going to make this work? But it's never been a problem for me to like get down and dirty with anything. It's like, yo, I'm going to make it work because it has to.
But even when he does manage to break barriers, Gene still finds more roadblocks.
There's a lot of people in the hip hop community that don't consider me hip hop. The first thing my mentor had told me is like, why are you doing this? Are you trying to fit in with X, Y, and Z type people or whatever? Mm-hmm. And it was crazy to me because I felt like, man, I just wanted to make a song. Like, why is it such a big deal that this person makes this song? And then there's a bunch of people in the rock community that don't consider me rock, even though it's a pop rock record. Like, people have called my music trap more than they've called it pop. But none of my music is trap other than the fact that I'm Black. And sometimes my cadence is rap. There's nothing to do with trap music.
Yeah.
Only reason we have classification is to simplify things that are abstract.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, like, it offends people when you don't fit their ideas of you. And that's why the idealistic view of me is like, I am this person or this person or this person. It's like, nah, dude, we're all hyper complicated human beings. Like, there's layers to us, like yourself.
How do we fix this? Well, the internet is doing a pretty good job already.
I had one job my entire life that I consider an actual job, where I was bagging groceries at a military store, and I literally shouldn't have been there, not even to out anybody. But I was just too young to be working there. But so I like ended up buying myself a little Acer laptop. I just was like on YouTube, and I was like looking up chord progressions. Mm-hmm. Once LimeWire became a factor, it was over. Like, it didn't matter.
More after this. At its finest, music can unite people, share stories from distant lands, and heal age-old wounds. For Gene Dawson, music is all of that and more.
So my mom is like a hip-hop head. She learned English through hip-hop, and thus let her meet my dad at a club at a certain point in Mexico, because my dad is also obsessed with, Hispanic culture to this day. He speaks Spanish. They fell in love. They would talk on the phone. My mom didn't understand him. He didn't understand her, but they'd sit on the phone for hours, apparently. And they ended up falling in love, I guess. And then had my older brother and then had me. So I was like, this, if it wasn't for Black culture giving my mom a home outside of Mexico, I don't think I would have existed. My father was in the military, so he was away a lot more than he was around. Mm-hmm. And so I had to grow up, I guess, with just my mom and my siblings. And I would leave my dad voicemails of me rapping on his, the answering machine. So when he would call, he would get that answering machine tone, and it'd just be me rapping or whatever.
Dawson moved to the States permanently for secondary school and then to Cal State University, Los Angeles on a scholarship. Between classes and deciding majors, Dawson would go on to release Bad Sports out of his college dorm room. He never ended up graduating, though. He left just before the end of his senior year. There was a wish from your family to come to the States to go into school. And, as there are new generations going into college, there's this kind of distinct feeling, more now than it was before, that the education system is broken. Do you think the education system is broken?
So I'm like torn, because there's a certain amount of me that loves academia. My mom only wanted me to be college educated. That's all she wanted her whole life. Mm-hmm. But the education system in the United States is based off of the condition that everybody has the same ability to learn the same things at the same rate, which is bad, because if we're only going based off test scores, it's like coming from a low-income community, they don't teach you how to test well. They teach you how to work well. They teach you how to do busy work really well. They give you a shit ton of homework so they know that you can stay focused for a long time, but that doesn't help you with tests. They don't teach you memorization skills. Even if they do teach you memorization skills, they don't teach you problem solving skills. You need to learn the history of anything to know the future of it. But the same vein, it's like, I was always trying to find the shortcut and doing something that would take forever. And that never went away up until music. And music, I'm like, nah, I'll take the fucking long route.
Dawson has lived up to the claim. Pixel Bath pays homage to Berlin House, krautrock, shoegaze, and so much more. Here are a few more tunes from Gene Dawson off the newest album, Pixel Bath. Enjoy. Dawson's encyclopedic knowledge of music crosses over into his business as well. Though Dawson has a publishing deal with the infamous Rick Rubin, he is unsigned. But he has some serious flex. Let's not forget that A$AP Rocky is featured on Triple Double. Musicians want to be him, and the A&R reps are desperate to have him. Up-and-coming artists, take notes. I know that you are completely unsigned, and there are certain artists, like Chance the Rapper. One of his, initial philosophical things was like, I want to make my music free, and that was kind of, in some ways, his business model. Has it been like a philosophical thing for you to be unsigned, or is it something that just kind of like came out of necessity?
I don't think the capabilities of a label supersede my capabilities, and that's not me being like ego driven. I think it's I think there's important things that labels are able to do. They're great at taking you from 70% to 100%, but they're not great at taking you from 0 to 70. And a lot of people get that confused, especially coming from where I come from. If you get signed, you made it. The smartest thing for me, I think, me and my team, is to remain unsigned for now. Not to say that I think people think that I hate labels, and I don't, because eventually I'm going to partner with one. But that's the key point, is I'm going to partner. I'm not going to be owned by somebody. I'm not going to be absorbed. And I just have to make sure that I can carry the weight that I promised to carry before I come on to anything, but also knowing the importance of being your own business and having proof of concept before you take in on any investors. Because you can go and then you just be, you undercut yourself because you think you're not worth as much as you actually are worth. It became way less philosophical, more as like me trying to establish my business savviness, when not undermining the powers of a label. It's a lot of sacrifice too, because like sometimes I'm just like, man, I want a fucking sick ass car right now. I'm fucking 24, dude. I want to drive a Lamborghini and shit. And I'm just like, nah, it's cool. I'm gonna get this Jeep and thug it out in this Jeep because it'll last longer.
Where do you see your career in 5 to 10 years, or where do you see just yourself as a person?
Well, hope to God's still alive and I lead a very healthy lifestyle. So we'll keep our fingers crossed for that. Bringing a unification of just not only sound, but just cultures, and making sure everybody feels like it's for everybody. And the reason I do that, I think, is because as a kid, I didn't think I belonged to anything. I sucked at sports, wasn't thugged out enough to be a thug. I think I was too sensitive. I'd have been like the most sensitive thug in the world. So as a black man, I think that's one of the things that I wanted to knock the hole into, and allowing people to see. It's like, yo, when I say for the kids like me, I'm not talking about for the kids that I'm talking about the kids that just want to do something, that want to do it bad enough that they're going to do it. They're going to find a way. And the people that find a way are the ones that ultimately do it. Everything will have to be done with intention. And that's kind of like the premise of all the things that I do. It's like, if there's no intention there, then I'm not going to do it. I want to have a few Grammys down. And I don't know. It's like one of those things where it's like, as much as I don't want the things that I want, I still want them. So it's like being the kid. It's like, I don't give a fuck if anybody likes me. It's like, you do, and it's okay, but you say you don't. And it's the same kind of thing. It's like, I don't give a fuck if I win a Grammy. It's like, no. I want to win a Grammy. But I think the overall consensus of what I want for my musical career in the next 5 years is consistency with making something profound. Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy was, for me, like
Totally.
2010 era, where it's just like, it's like nothing better for me came out. Then one of my favorite artists of all time is James Blake. And I'm just like, how does James Blake make these things sound like, how the fuck does that make sense? It just does. And it's like my favorite shit. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I hope that I'm still learning in 5 years, and I hope that I don't think I'm a know-it-all, and I hope I'm not an asshole.
More after some songs chosen by Gene Dawson. The most talented people have been fortunate enough to meet, like older generational artists, like the Quincy Joneses and the Paul McCartneys, and they are just humble, good people, and I think it's because they have
they don't feel self-conscious. They don't feel like they have to make up for something, you know. And I think the most talented, great artists are just are preoccupied about being good people. Even James Blake, he's a freaking amazing gentleman, British dude person. He's the nicest guy.
Dude, I met him and almost threw up. He was super nice.
Yeah. I did Jules Holland way back in the day with Adele and James Blake. It was like the craziest.
Oh, wow.
and Metronomy. And it was funny because in the beginning they take all the singers and begin and I'm not short, you know, I'm like 6 feet tall, but James Blake's was like 6'3".
No, that motherfucker's huge.
Yeah, and Adele's like 6'3", 6'4", and with heels she was
no
like 6.
way.
Yeah, she's tall, man. And I remember just feeling, oh my god, just such a tiny person. But
it must be a tiny. No, when I met James Blake too, like it was a long story. It's like he was across the street at a bus stop after doing a show, and I didn't want to say hi, but my homie was like, "You're being a bitch right now," and I was like, "Damn, I can't be a bitch right now." So he was like, "Just go say hi." So I went up to him and I gave him thanks for the music that he makes and all this other shit, and he stood up, and the whole time I was just about to tell him like, "You can sit back down, bro. You're not gonna disrespect me like that," because I'm 6'1", so like. You know what I mean? Like it takes a pretty tall person to make me feel small. Yeah. And like I don't have little man complex. I've never had because I'm a decent size to not have little man complex. But I'm like, you're not gonna just be that good at music and be that tall. That's not fair. That's not okay.
I know, man. He just posted a photo of him as a baby on Instagram.
Was he tall?
Dude, he's a huge baby, man. This is like
he's like,
I have one last question for you.
Yeah, no problem.
What do you want people to know about you?
That I care. I care. I care about music. I care about them. And I just care. And I don't know why the fuck I care. I probably shouldn't, but I do. So I care. I care about you. I care about people that are listening, and I care about people that are not listening. I think I want to galvanize community and make sure that everybody feels something. So kids reach out and they tell me their personal stuff, and I'm just like, fuck, dude, this is heavy. I'm just like in the middle of eating a Chick-fil-A sandwich, and now we're talking about this, and I'm just like, all right, hold on, let me put my sandwich down before I get deep into this conversation. But you know, I just want to be decent. I want to continue to be a decent human and be better than I was every day. So the next day over.
Enjoy. I don't know if you probably finished your pancakes a long time ago, but
oh yeah, no, it's all good. They were fucking great. I like scarfed those things down and just came to my car. Thank you so much for your time too. Like, man, I really appreciate having these conversations, and especially you taking the time out. And thank you for the show that you're doing. Like that's, and I know it's not just like a noble feat for the sake of doing it, but it's like, it's conversations that people need to have. And for some people to be uncomfortable, for some people it's just like a normal conversation with their homie. But I think that you are bringing a very important conversation to the table that needs to happen for people to understand that it's just music. It's nothing else. It should be literally nothing else. It's just music.
That wraps up this segment of Point of Origin. I'll be back at you soon, but in the meantime, don't stop untying those knots. This is Samir Gadia, signing off.